I wanted to talk a little bit about Hildryn. I've seen a couple of guys post Arcane changes, but I haven't seen any talking about Crep's Enervate, which I think is an underrated option on her. And the reason that you would run Crep's Enervate in general is because of this. Look at those crit stats. Aren't they butts? The basic idea behind this is that her crit chance and her crit mult are very low, right? And second, she needs some sort of survivability to cover her shields, because if she loses all of her shields, she loses all of her energy. And so what you end up with is this idea, right? Which I think most people have been looking at fortifier for her because it covers her shields, which covers her energy. But I found that this build works especially well in survival, and it does tend to do more damage. That's even with Airburst Rounds, which I think is probably her best like general damage option. So let's talk about the build a little bit. The most important thing is, of course, Arcane Crepuscular, and it's pretty obvious why this is good. One, you get a bunch of extra ability strength, which Hildryn loves, and on top of that, you get 3x crit mult, right? Which, with her 1.5x base, is roughly 200% crit damage, right? There's no mod in the game that really compares to that. Yeah, we get basically 2 more of these, which is sick.
So the way we'll actually be activating this is with Quiver, which is Ivara subsume. You get Ivara by doing a bunch of spy missions, and you can go invisible in a circle. Circle range scales with range, circle duration scales with duration, both of which Hildryn doesn't really want to dump. So you tend to have a pretty big radius with my current build that you can just stay invisible inside of. This is how we'll be getting Crepuscular to actually activate, is by just using this and then just staying invisible.
It's important to note that you actually do need to be invisible before you use your 4 in order for the power strength to get snapshotted. If you do it the other order, you'll just miss out on that 30% power strength from Creps forever. That said, once you're actually invisible and then you're in your 4, you can shoot now and this will still apply the power strength because it's fully snapshotted. So just make sure that whenever you do it, invisible first, then press 4.
So on top of Creps, the other main thing you can do to actually get some more crit damage is Tenacious Bond. This is very similar reason. You need to be running as much crit damage that is flat as you can because your base crit is pretty bad. So this is a very good option. Reinforced Bond is also very good, and probably what you should be doing is you should just be running like Shield Link. Hey look, our shields are high enough now for Reinforced Bond to work. So between those two, you'll basically always have both the attack speed and the extra crit mult. So highly recommend both of them.
The only other really important thing to mention about this build in general is that we are running some dodge speeds on this, and we're running some attack speed on the 4x. There is other options for this. I actually would recommend the Okina for general use because the movement speed does apply to your 4. So moving faster is good, in case that wasn't immediately obvious. But I tend to use this with the other build instead because we tend to be just hiding in our bubbles for the most part, so we don't really need the movement speed. And the dodge speed just lets us get between the bubbles. Beyond that, Rolling Guard is usable while you're flying. Like you can see, I go invincible. There's sort of 2 main reasons to run Rolling Guard. The first is that when you're dashing between your quiver spots, it's pretty important to still like not die, and you'll just be invincible while you're doing that. It does have a 6 or 7 second cooldown, but your quiver has like a 10-second decay rate with this build, so it ends up being up basically every single time that you dash between spots. You can also use it just as a general safety thing, so that if your quiver does wear off, you can just dash and then quiver, and you'll stay completely invisible or invincible for that duration. Also worth mentioning that there are some Eximus units that can like break your shields even if you're invincible. Arson Eximuses, for example, can cast and then you can get damaged by it and then lose all of your shields. So having Rolling Guard as just like a backup safety option is pretty useful, especially considering that you can't use Pillage if you're out of shields. So having anything to clear status that isn't just Pillage is just useful. Should be pretty obvious, but Aegis Scale is also mandatory. The reason for this is because of the alt fire. The alt fire is way more damage than your primary fire. And beyond that, the max shield damage is also pretty nice. So this is about as fast as I can fire with the primary fire, but if you're just pressing your middle mouse button for alt fire or whatever it is for consoles, you'll actually be doing damage. So alt fire almost always. For Archon shards, what I'm mostly running is just strength shards. I do have one cast speed shard on here, but it was for testing a different build. This isn't really that related. I think it's probably best to just replace this with more power strength. The reason that you're using power strength specifically is mostly because of pillage and because your Aegis Storm will scale with it. And more importantly, power strength for your balefires is multiplicative with just regular base damage. So it is kind of important to just have at least some power strength on here. I don't believe Precision Intensify is a good thing to use because I believe the base damage scales off of your 1 strength. So you can't like just Precision Intensify in here and call it a day. You do actually need the power strength. And the extra like actual pillage power is pretty useful too. Another useful thing to mention is that this Arcane is to taste. I'm running Velocity on here right now, but I believe Augmented is just fine too. I think any source of power strength is very good on Hildryn. So whatever you think is best here, I don't really think this is that big of a deal. Obviously 100% 20 fire rate is really good. So if you can use it, you can use it. The reason we're running so much range here is because range is multiplicative with Prime Fulmination. With this mod. So our base AoE with this right now is 7.5, and that'll get multiplied even further by the extra 44% from Fulmination. So I do highly recommend both of these together. It's also worth mentioning that Balefires are completely line of sight check dependent. So like, I can just shoot down here and it'll still hit stuff way over here. It does not care about line of sight at all. I even have some footage of me like shooting a ceiling and killing things on the floor above me. So I definitely recommend like both Fulmination and a lot of range on her. If you do want to drop it, what I would recommend is just putting more power strength on her instead. Like just from dropping this, you'll be getting another 60% power strength, but if you replace this with something else, it'll be very, very good. But for most missions, I think the range is much more valuable than doing more single target damage, considering how much AoE Hildryn likes to do. I will be including a 20-minute survival demo just on Sir Hercules with a fissure. It's what she's best at. I don't really think you should be using her outside of context like that. I don't think she's great at exterminates, for example, unless it's like very tight corridors and people struggle to move quickly through them anyways. She does have a ton of AoE, but her AoE is mostly valuable because it doesn't check line of sight. So use her, you know, in like exterminate on infested tile sets where like you don't have to go up and down a lot, or use her in places where, you know, the corridors are just tight and it's a pain in the ass to like kill things quickly. But I would never use her in like a capture mission. Like you're not going to press 4 and then slowly drift towards the capture target, right? Like it's just not amazing. Another niche I'd like to point out for Hildryn in general is just EDA. She tends to ignore a lot of these. The only one that she can't really ignore is the one that just prevents ability use for the first 50 kills. But the rest of these she tends to like either not care about or tends to care about the same as everybody else. So Knife Step Syndrome, for example, if you're flying, this doesn't do anything. Status duration, it doesn't matter because you can press pillage and it's gone. This is basically going to affect every frame the same. This is basically going to affect every frame the same. And she also has a ton of just AoE CC with her 4. So she tends to even do well on mirror defense, which is not something a lot of frames can do. And when you combine that with a weapon that actually scales to this level, even like with a fortifier build, she just tends to do very good here. What I would say is that if you're doing EDHEs with Hildryn, I would recommend her fortifier build. This is what I use. The most important thing is that you have Avenger and Combat Discipline if you're doing a crit version of it. If you don't care about the crit and like you don't need the damage for whatever reason, you can drop that for something else. I don't really know what the best thing is, but Fortifier ends up doing really well because it kind of eliminates her one weakness, right? Which is Eximus units that can get through your CC. So you'll just hit them with Balefires with Fortifier and their Overguard will disappear and then they'll get CC'd by your 4. So like this build tends to be very good too. But I'm not going to go over it here because I think there's like 10 or 20 different Fortifier builds on YouTube already, so it's just not worth it. You can go find them yourself. If I was going to recommend any builds, I would recommend Malor's build from before the patch and then just put Fortifier on it. It's relatively the same, and I think it's probably the best build on here. So I'll be including a link for that build in the description.
All right. One piece of Hildryn tech that I think is probably pretty valuable to some people, maybe not that many, is that you can actually maintain void sling speed as long as you're above your maximum height. So like when you're holding space, like you can see that this is the maximum height, and then you'll kind of fall above that height. But if you void sling like this and then switch back at the same time, you can see that I have just a ton of movement speed. And this will only continue in the direction of that you're currently moving, and it'll only happen while you're above that maximum height. Because as soon as you get back down to the maximum height, you'll get your basically what's, I guess you could consider it grounded friction back, but that doesn't happen while you're airborne, like truly airborne. This isn't really an Aegiscale bug. You can kind of see that it works even like this. So if I just bullet jump up and then I do the same switch, you can see that we keep the movement speed. And frankly, it's better if you're not in Aegiscale. But I figured it was worth a mention because I don't think that many people know about it. Just kind of interesting. If you're struggling to do the inputs for this, probably what's happening is that you're not switching back from operator first. So you need to do, on keyboard, it's going to be 5 and then 5 space, like while you're midair. And the 5 in space, the second ones, will be very close to each other. So bullet jump up, 5, 5 space in order for it to work. You want to do this so that like it happens during the void sling velocity, because you can technically switch back from operator at any point in this. So like if you do it too early, what'll end up happening is, let's get out of that. 5 space. Sometimes you'll just end up on the ground because it'll just drag you along the floor, or sometimes it just won't give you the movement speed at all. So just worth noting. Okay, I think that's mostly it for the entire build. The only other important things that I can really think of to include here are bugs, and the last time I did that, people got mad because I showed off a bug. That was objectively funny, but it's probably going to get fixed now. I do know of some similar crit bugs on Hildryn, but I don't want to talk about them, mostly because of that, but also because they are more exploitable than this, than the Azima bug that I posted last. So I'm probably not going to post them. I'm just going to report them to the like a good citizen. Beyond that, have a good day. What do YouTubers say? Like and subscribe or whatever. Do that.